The sky turned dark over Seoul on a Tuesday morning. It was not clouds. It was not an eclipse. It was something that nobody on Earth had ever seen before. Kang Tae-ho stood outside the refugee shelter where he worked and looked up. His hands were still wet from washing dishes. Around him, people stopped walking. Cars stopped moving. The entire city became silent. A ship hung in the sky. It was so large that Tae-ho could not see where it ended. It stretched from one side of the horizon to the other, blocking the sun and casting a shadow that covered everything. The ship was black and silver, with lights that moved across its surface like living things. Tae-ho was 32 years old. He was not a soldier. He was not a scientist. He was not important in any way that the world usually measured importance. He worked at a small shelter that helped refugees from war-torn countries. He gave them food. He helped them find places to sleep. He listened to their stories. That was his life. Now, like 7 billion other humans, he watched the sky and waited. The news came within hours. Every television, every phone, every computer screen on Earth showed the same message. The visitors called themselves the Villani. They had come from far beyond the stars. They ruled 47 star systems. They had conquered hundreds of species across the galaxy. And now they had come for Earth. Tae-ho sat in the shelter's small office and watched the broadcast. The refugees gathered around him, their eyes wide with fear. Some of them had already run from war once. Now there was nowhere left to run. What did they want? Asked a young boy named Duri. He was only 8 years old. His family had died in a bombing 2 years ago, and Tae-ho had become like an older brother to him. I do not know, Tae-ho said honestly. He put his hand on the boy's shoulder. But we will face it together. The Villani sent a message to Earth's leaders. Their queen wished to meet with humanity. She would make her demands known in person. Earth had 3 days to prepare. 3 days. That was all the time humanity had to decide its fate. The United Earth Council called an emergency meeting. Every powerful nation sent their leaders. Every military prepared their weapons. Every scientist worked without sleep to understand the alien technology. Tae-ho watched all of this on the news. He felt helpless. What could a man like him do against beings who had conquered the stars? He had no weapons. He had no power. He had nothing but his 2 hands and his heart. So he did the only thing he knew how to do. He kept working. On the first day after the arrival, Tae-ho woke up early and made breakfast for the refugees. He smiled at them even though he was afraid. He played games with the children, even though his mind was troubled. He listened to the elderly tell their stories, even though the world might end tomorrow. You are strange, said an old woman named Sun-yi. She had lived through 2 wars in her life. Her face was wrinkled like old paper, but her eyes were still sharp. Everyone else is panicking, but you are making soup. Tae-ho stirred the pot and shrugged. People still need to eat, he said. Being afraid does not change that. Sun-yi watched him carefully. You are afraid, she said. I can see it in your eyes. But you are still here. You are still helping. Why? Tae-ho thought about the question. He had never been good with words. He was not smart like his younger sister Yuna, who spoke 5 languages and worked as a translator for the government. He was not brave like his friend Hyun-soo, who served in the military and protected the country. He was just Tae-ho. Just a man who made soup and helped people. Because it matters, he said finally. Maybe the world will end tomorrow. Maybe those aliens will destroy everything we have ever built. But right now, in this moment, you are hungry. And I can help with that. So I will, Sun-yi smiled. It was a sad smile, but there was warmth in it. You remind me of my husband, she said. He was like you. He never stopped caring, even when caring cost him everything. That night, Tejo could not sleep. He went outside and sat on the steps of the shelter. The alien ship still hung in the sky, blocking the stars. Its lights moved slowly, patiently, like the eyes of some great beast waiting to strike. His phone rang. It was Yuna. "Brother," she said. Her voice was tired and stressed. "I have been selected. I will be part of the translation team when the Queen arrives." Tejo felt his heart tighten. "That is dangerous," he said. "I know," Yuna replied. "But someone has to do it. And I am one of the best linguists in the country. They need me." "Be careful," Tejo said. "Please." There was silence on the line for a moment. Then Yuna spoke again, her voice softer now. "I am scared, brother. I have studied languages my whole life. I have learned to speak with people from every corner of Earth. But these beings, they are not human. How do I speak with something that is not human?" Tejo looked up at the ship in the sky. "The same way you speak with anyone," he said. "With respect, with honesty, with an open heart." Yuna laughed softly. "You always make things sound so simple." "Because they are simple," Tejo said. "We make them complicated because we are afraid. But underneath all the fear, all the words, all the differences, everyone wants the same things. To be understood, to be valued, to matter. Even aliens? Even aliens." The 3 days passed like a dream. Tejo continued his work at the shelter. He fed the hungry. He comforted the scared. He held the hands of those who cried and told them that everything would be okay. Even though he did not know if it was true. And then the day came. The Queen of the Villani was coming to Earth. Every screen showed the same image. A smaller ship descending from the mothership, cutting through the clouds like a knife through silk. It landed in Geneva, where the leaders of Earth had gathered. The whole world watched. Tejo watched too, sitting in the shelter's small office with the refugees gathered around him. He did not know it yet, but his life was about to change forever. He did not know that across all the conquered systems, across all the species the Villani had subdued, the Queen had been watching, searching, looking for something that all her power and all her conquests could never give her, and she had found it in him. Geneva was the most guarded place on Earth. Soldiers from every nation stood in lines around the meeting hall. Tanks waited in the streets. Fighter jets circled in the sky. Submarines hid in the nearby lakes and rivers. Every weapon that humanity possessed was pointed at the sky, ready to fight, but everyone knew it would not matter. The Villani ship that descended from the mothership was small compared to the great vessel that still hung above the planet, but it was still larger than any building in the city. It moved without sound, without fire, without any sign of the engines that powered it. It simply floated down from the clouds and landed in the open field that had been prepared for it. Park. Yuna stood with the translation team at the edge of the field. Her heart was beating so fast that she could feel it in her throat. She had studied alien signals for years. She had helped decode the first messages from the Villani. She had learned their basic language, structure in just 3 days. But nothing had prepared her for this moment. The ship opened. There was no door, no hatch, no mechanism that Yuna could see. The metal simply parted like water, and figures stepped out into the light. The Villani guards came first. They were tall, nearly 3 meters high, with silver skin that reflected the sunlight like mirrors. Each of them had 4 arms, 2 on each side of their body, and their fingers ended in points that looked sharp enough to cut through steel. Their faces were smooth, without expression, with eyes that glowed faintly blue. They moved in perfect formation, forming 2 lines on either side of the path. They did not speak. They did not need to. Their presence alone was enough to make every soldier in Geneva grip their weapons tighter. Then the Queen appeared. Yuna had seen many things in her life. She had read about the wonders of the universe. She had imagined what beings from other worlds might look like. But nothing in her imagination had prepared her for Queen Seraphine of the Valai. She was not tall like her guards. She was about the same height as a human woman, perhaps a little taller. Her skin was pale, almost white, with a faint glow that seemed to come from within. Her hair was long and silver, flowing behind her like liquid metal. Her eyes were the most striking thing about her. They were deep purple, the color of a sunset seen from space, and they held a weight that Yuna could not describe. It was like looking into the eyes of someone who had lived for thousands of years and seen things that no human mind could comprehend. She wore a simple robe of white and gold. No crown, no jewels, no signs of power except for the power that radiated from her very being. She walked forward, and the ground seemed to tremble with each step. Not from her weight, but from the importance of the moment. The Secretary General of Earth stepped forward to meet her. He was a brave man, Yuna thought. She could see his hands shaking, but he kept his voice steady. "Your Majesty," he said, "on behalf of the people of Earth, we welcome you. We hope that we can find a path to peace between our peoples." The Queen looked at him. Her eyes moved slowly, examining him the way a scientist might examine an insect. There was no cruelty in her gaze. There was no kindness either. There was only observation. "I have not come for peace," she said. Her voice was soft, but it carried across the entire field. Everyone heard it. Everyone felt it. "I have come to take what I need." A murmur went through the gathered crowd. Generals whispered to their aides. Presidents looked at each other with fear. The moment everyone had dreaded had arrived. "We have prepared offerings," the Secretary General said. He gestured to the tables behind him, where humanity's greatest treasures had been gathered. There was gold and platinum, rare metals that had taken years to mine. There were computers containing all of human knowledge, every book ever written, every discovery ever made. There were weapons, vehicles, artwork, and more. "We offer these freely," the Secretary General continued. "Take what you want. We ask only that you spare our people." The Queen walked past him. She did not even glance at the treasures. She moved through the gathered leaders like they were not there, her eyes scanning the crowd. Yuna watched her carefully. There was something strange about the Queen's movements. She moved like someone who was very tired but was trying to hide it. Her eyes, those ancient purple eyes, were not searching for treasure. They were searching for something else. "Your Majesty," said a general, stepping forward, "we can offer military support. Our soldiers are ready to serve. We will fight for the Empire if that is what you require." The Queen stopped walking. She turned to look at the general. "I have no need for soldiers," she said. "I have conquered 47 systems with my own forces. Your warriors are nothing to me. Then what do you want?" The Secretary General asked. His voice cracked slightly. "Tell us, and we will do everything in our power to provide it." The Queen did not answer. She continued her walk through the crowd, her eyes moving from face to face. She looked at presidents and did not stop. She looked at generals and kept walking. She looked at scientists, artists, and leaders of every kind, and passed them all by. Yuna noticed something strange. The Queen's gaze lingered on certain people longer than others. Not the powerful ones. Not the important ones. She seemed to be looking at the ordinary people, the staff members, the aides, the workers who had been brought along to serve the leaders. Then the Queen's eyes found Yuna. For a moment, Yuna could not breathe. Those purple eyes looked into her, through her, past her. Yuna felt like all of her secrets were being read, all of her thoughts being examined. But then the Queen moved on. She looked past Yuna, past the translation team, past the security guards. She looked at the very back of the crowd, where a small group of support staff waited. kitchen workers, cleaners, assistants. People who had been brought along to help, but who never expected to be noticed. Among them was a man with kind eyes and tired hands. He had been called to Geneva at the last minute to help prepare food for the delegation. He had not wanted to come. He had wanted to stay at his shelter and take care of his refugees. But his sister had asked him, and he could never say no to his sister. Kang Taeho stood in the back of the crowd and watched the queen approach, and when their eyes met, something changed in the queen's face. For just a moment, the mask of ancient power cracked. Something flashed in those purple eyes. Something that looked almost like hope. She raised her hand and pointed. "Him," she said. "I want only him." The world fell silent. Yuna's heart stopped. She looked at where the queen was pointing and felt the blood drain from her face. She was pointing at her brother. She was pointing at Taeho. The queen had crossed the stars, conquered empires, and brought the greatest weapon in the galaxy to Earth. And all she wanted was a man who made soup for refugees. Nobody understood. Not yet. The silence that followed the queen's words was unlike anything the world had ever experienced. It was not just quiet. It was the absence of all sound, as if the universe itself had stopped to listen. Kang Taeho stood frozen. Every eye in the gathering was on him now. Cameras that broadcast to billions of people turned to face him. World leaders who had prepared to sacrifice entire nations to save humanity were staring at him with confusion and disbelief. He was still wearing his simple clothes, the ones he had packed quickly when Yuna called him to Geneva. He had not even had time to iron his shirt. His hands were rough from years of work. There was nothing special about him, nothing that should make an alien queen cross the stars to find him. "There must be some mistake," said the Secretary General. His voice shook as he spoke. "This man is no one. He's just a worker. He has nothing of value to offer your empire." The queen did not look at the Secretary General. Her eyes remained fixed on Taeho. "He has everything I have searched for across 10,000 years, she said. The words hung in the air like smoke. 10,000 years. The number was so large that it did not feel real. Taeho tried to understand what he was hearing, but his mind could not process it. "Your Majesty," said a military general, stepping forward, "surely you cannot be serious. We have prepared our finest soldiers, our greatest scientists, our most powerful weapons. This man is nothing. He makes food at a refugee shelter. He is nobody." The queen turned her head slowly to look at the general. When she spoke, her voice was cold. "You speak of soldiers and scientists and weapons," she said. "These things have no value to me. I have conquered species with weapons that could destroy your entire planet in seconds. I have scientists who can bend space and time. I have soldiers who have fought in wars that lasted longer than your entire civilization has existed." She turned back to Taeho. "But in all my empire, across all my conquered worlds, I have never found what this man possesses." Yuna pushed through the crowd. Security guards tried to stop her, but she was small and quick, and she slipped past them before they could grab her. "That is my brother," she said, her voice strong despite her fear. "Whatever you want with him, I demand to know why." The queen looked at Yuna. For a moment, something shifted in her expression. It was not anger. It was not annoyance. It was almost curiosity. "You are his sister," the queen said. It was not a question. "I have watched you as well. You are intelligent. You are brave. But you are not what I seek. What do you seek?" Yuna demanded. The queen was silent for a long moment. The entire world waited for her answer. "I seek something that my species lost long ago," she said finally. "Something that all our power and all our knowledge cannot give us." She walked toward Taeho. Her guards moved with her, forming a protective circle around their queen. The humans backed away, afraid to get too close to those silver giants. Taeho did not back away. He stood his ground, not because he was brave, but because his legs would not move. He was too shocked, too confused, too overwhelmed to do anything but stand there and wait. The queen stopped in front of him. She was close enough now that he could see the details of her face. Up close, she looked tired. Not physically tired, but tired in a way that went deeper than the body. It was the tiredness of someone who had lived too long and seen too much. "I have watched you," she said softly. "For many years, I have watched your planet. I have studied your species. I have learned your languages, your customs, your history." Taeho found his voice. It came out rough and uncertain, but it came out. "Why me?" he asked. "There are billions of people on Earth. There are people much more important than me." "Why me?" The queen reached out and touched his face. Her fingers were cool, like stone that had been sitting in shade. But her touch was gentle, almost tender. "Because you are what I am looking for," she said. "I have watched you hold dying children and sing to them. I have watched you give your food to strangers. I have watched you weep at sunsets and laugh at small kindnesses. I have watched you feel things that my people have not felt for 10,000 years. She pulled her hand back. "You feel," she said, "purely, truly, without pretense or performance. That is what I have searched for across the stars. That is what I have come to claim." The Secretary General stepped forward again. "Your Majesty, if I may ask, what do you intend to do with him? If it is study you want, we can arrange for a scientist to help. If it is communication, we have experts who can—" "I do not want to study him like a specimen," the Queen interrupted. "I do not want to communicate with him through machines and translators." She looked at Taeho. "I want him to teach me." The words fell like thunder. "Teacher?" This was the queen of an empire that spanned 47 star systems. She had power beyond anything humanity could imagine. What could a simple man from Seoul possibly teach her? "Teach you what?" Taeho asked. The queen's eyes met his. And in that moment, Taeho saw something he had not expected. Behind all the power, behind all the ancient wisdom, behind all the coldness and control, he saw loneliness. "I want you to teach me how to feel again," she said. "I want you to teach me how to be alive." The world heard these words and did not understand. But Taeho understood. He had seen that same loneliness in the eyes of refugees who had lost everything. He had seen it in the faces of orphaned children. He had seen it in the hearts of people who had given up on hope. The Queen of the Villani, ruler of an empire that stretched across the galaxy, was just as lost as any human he had ever helped. "If I refuse?" Taeho asked quietly. The Queen's expression did not change. "Then I will leave," she said, "and I will continue my search. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, I will find another like you. Perhaps I never will. And Earth? What happens to Earth if I refuse?" "Nothing," the Queen said. "I did not come here to conquer you. I came here for you. If you refuse, I have no reason to stay." Taeho looked at Yuna. His sister's face was pale with shock. He looked at the world leaders, the generals, the scientists. They were all watching him, waiting for his answer. He thought about his shelter in Seoul. He thought about the refugees who depended on him. He thought about little Dory, who still had nightmares about the bombs that killed his family. He thought about the Queen's eyes. "So old, so tired, so empty. I need time," he said. "I need time to think." The Queen nodded slowly. "You have one day," she said. "When the sun rises tomorrow, I will return for your answer." She turned and walked back toward her ship. Her guards followed. The crowd parted before her like water before a stone dot. As she reached her ship, she paused and looked back. "Whatever you decide," she said, "know this. I have conquered worlds. I have destroyed civilizations. I have done terrible things in my search, but I have never forced anyone to do what I am asking of you. This must be your choice. Only your choice will mean anything." Then she was gone, and the ship rose into the sky, and the world was left to wonder what would happen next. Taeho stood alone in the center of the gathering, the weight of 7 billion lives pressing down on his shoulders. He had one day to make the most important decision in human history. The world did not sleep that night. Every news channel showed the same footage over and over again. The queen pointing, Taeho standing there in his simple clothes. The words that she spoke, replayed and analyzed and debated by millions of people around the planet. Taeho was taken to a secure location, a hotel that had been emptied of all other guests and surrounded by soldiers. Yuna stayed with him. She refused to leave his side, no matter what anyone said. They sat together in a small room, watching the news on a television that they could not turn off. Outside, crowds had gathered. Some people held signs that said, "Give him to them." Others held signs that said, "Protect our brother." The world was divided, and Taeho was at the center of the divide. "I do not understand," Yuna said quietly. "How did she know about you? How did she watch you for years without anyone noticing?" Taeho shook his head. "I do not know. I am just me. There is nothing special about me." There was a knock at the door. A military officer entered, followed by several scientists and government officials. Among them was a tall man in a captain's uniform. When Taeho saw him, he stood up. "Hyan-soo," he said. Kim Hyan-soo was Taeho's oldest friend. They had grown up together in the same neighborhood. While Taeho had become a humanitarian worker, Hyun-soo had joined the military. He had risen through the ranks quickly, becoming one of the youngest captains in the army. Now he stood in front of his childhood friend with a grave expression on his face. "I came as soon as I could," Hyan-soo said. He looked at Taeho with concern. "How are you holding up?" "I am confused," Taeho admitted. "I do not understand what is happening." One of the scientists stepped forward. He was an older man with glasses and a tired face. "We have been analyzing the Queen's words," he said. "We believe we now understand what she meant." He pulled up a holographic display that showed images of the Villani, collected from the brief encounter in Geneva. "The Villani are an ancient species," the scientist explained. "Based on what the Queen said, they have existed for at least 10,000 years. Possibly much longer. In that time, they have evolved far beyond what humans can imagine." He showed brain scans and data charts that meant nothing to Taeho. "But evolution comes with costs," the scientist continued. "The Villani became smarter, stronger, and more efficient. They developed technology that we cannot even begin to understand. But in the process, they lost something. Their emotions," Yuna said quietly. She had been listening carefully. The scientist nodded. "Exactly. The Villani evolved past the need for emotions. They became purely logical beings. No fear, no anger, no sadness, but also no joy, no love, no hope." Taeho thought about the Queen's eyes. That deep emptiness he had seen there. "They became perfect," the scientist said. "But perfection is cold. Perfection is empty. They have spent thousands of years conquering the galaxy, not because they wanted power, but because they were searching for something to fill the void inside them. And they think I can fill that void," Taeho said. "Not fill it," the scientist corrected. "Teach them how to fill it themselves. The Queen does not want to study you like an object. She wants to learn from you. She wants you to show her how humans feel things, how we experience joy and sorrow and love." Hyan-soo stepped forward. "Which is why I am here," he said. His voice was serious. "The military has a plan. We can hide you. We have safe houses in locations that no satellite can find. We can move you from place to place, keep you hidden until the Villani give up and leave. And if they do not leave? Yuna asked. What if they decide to take him by force? Hyansu's face darkened. Then we fight. We fight with everything we have. We would lose, Yuna said flatly. Maybe, Hyansu admitted. But we would die free. We would die human. Steho listened to all of this in silence. He watched his sister argue with his friend. He watched the scientists debate theories and the officials make plans. Everyone was talking about him, but nobody was talking to him. Finally, he spoke. Stop, he said. Everyone fell silent. Stop talking about me like I am not here, Taiho said. This is my decision to make, not yours. Hyansu looked at him with surprise. In all the years they had known each other, Taiho had never been the one to take charge. He had always been quiet, gentle, content to let others lead. But something had changed. The queen said she has been watching me, Taiho continued. She said she watched me hold dying children and sing to them. She said she watched me weep at sunsets and give my food to strangers. He paused, remembering those moments. The child in the collapsed building. The sunsets over the refugee camp. The meals he had shared with people who had nothing. If she has seen those things, he said, then she has seen the real me. Not a hero. Not a special person. Just a man who tries to care about others. That is exactly why you cannot go, Yuna said. Her voice was desperate now. You are too kind. She will use you. She will take advantage of your kindness and then throw you away when she is done. Taiho looked at his sister. He loved her more than anyone in the world. She was smart and strong and brave. She was everything he was not. Maybe, he said. Or maybe she really is just lonely. Maybe she really does just want to learn. He walked to the window and looked out at the night sky. The mothership was still there, a dark shadow against the stars. I have spent my whole life helping people who were lost, he said. Refugees, orphans, people who had lost everything. I helped them because I believed that everyone deserves kindness. Everyone deserves a chance. He turned back to face the room. The queen is lost, he said. She has been lost for 10,000 years. If I can help her find her way, should I not try? But the risk, Hyansu said. The danger. We do not know what they will do to you. I do not know what tomorrow will bring, Taiho replied. I never have. But I have never let fear stop me from helping someone in need. Yuna stood up and walked to her brother. She took his hands in hers. You have already decided, she said. It was not a question. Taiho nodded. I will go with her, he said. But I will not go as a prisoner. I will not go as a specimen to be studied. If she wants me to teach her, then I will teach her. As an equal. As a human being. And if she refuses those terms, then I will refuse to go, Taiho said. And we will face whatever comes next together. The room was silent. Everyone was looking at Taiho with a new expression. It was respect. For the first time in his life, people were looking at him not with pity or confusion, but with genuine respect. Hyansu stepped forward and put his hand on Taiho's shoulder. You are the bravest man I know, he said. I always knew it. Now the whole world will know it too. Yuna hugged her brother tightly. She was crying, but she was also smiling. Promise me you will come back, she whispered. Taiho held her close. I promise, he said. I promise. Outside, the sun began to rise. A new day was coming, and with it the queen would return for her answer. The sun rose over Geneva like a promise. The sky turned from black to purple to orange to gold. Taiho watched it from his window and thought about all the sunrises he had seen in his life. The ones over Seoul when he was a child. The ones over the refugee camps where he had worked for years. The ones he had shared with people who had nothing left but hope. This might be the last sunrise he ever saw on Earth. He wanted to remember it at exactly 8 in the morning. The Queen's ship descended from the mothership. It moved slowly this time, almost gently, as if it understood the weight of the moment. Taeho was waiting when it landed. He stood alone in the center of the field, dressed in simple clothes. No guards surrounded him. No weapons were pointed at the sky. He had asked for this. He wanted to meet the Queen as himself, not as a prisoner being offered up. Yuna and Hyun-soo stood at the edge of the field with the other observers. Billions of people around the world watched through cameras. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The ship opened, and the Queen stepped out. She was different today. Her robes were simpler, more plain. Her hair was pulled back from her face. She looked almost vulnerable. As vulnerable as an immortal being who ruled the galaxy could look. She walked toward Taeho, leaving her guards behind. When she reached him, she stopped and waited. "You have made your decision," she said. It was not a question. Taeho nodded. "I have," he said. "But before I give you my answer, I have questions of my own." The Queen tilted her head slightly. "Ask. If I come with you, what happens to my family, to my friends, to the people I care about?" "Nothing will happen to them," the Queen said. "I did not come here for conquest. I came here for you. If you come with me, your planet will be left in peace. And what happens to me? Will I be a prisoner? Will I be studied like an animal?" Something flickered in the Queen's eyes. It might have been sadness, though it was hard to tell. "I have made that mistake before," she said. "Long ago, when we first began our search, we took beings from other worlds and tried to study them. We measured their brain waves. We recorded their behaviors. We tried to understand emotions through science." She paused. "It did not work," she continued. "Emotions cannot be studied. They cannot be measured. They can only be experienced. That is what I want from you. Not study. Experience." Taeho looked into her eyes. He searched for any sign of deception, any hint that she was lying. But all he saw was that same emptiness he had noticed before. That same desperate loneliness. "If I come with you," he said, "I will not be a prisoner. I will be a teacher. And a teacher must be free." Agreed. "I must be allowed to contact my family. To speak with them. To know that they are safe." Agreed. "And when I'm finished teaching you, when you have learned what you came to learn, I must be allowed to return home." The Queen was silent for a long moment. Around the field, everyone held their breath. "You asked me to promise something I do not know I can give," she said finally. "I do not know how long it will take to learn what you have to teach. I do not know if I will ever truly understand what it means to feel. What if it takes years? What if it takes decades? What if it takes the rest of your natural life?" Taeho felt his heart tighten. He thought about never seeing Yuna again, never seeing Hyun-soo again, never walking through the streets of Seoul again, never holding little Duri's hand as they walked to school. But then he thought about the Queen. 10,000 years of searching, 10,000 years of emptiness, 10,000 years of conquering worlds, not out of cruelty, but out of desperation. "Then I will teach you for as long as it takes," he said. "But I need your promise that when you have learned, you will let me go. Not as a reward, not as a payment, but because you will understand that love means letting go." The Queen stared at him. For a long moment, she did not move. Then, slowly, she lowered her head. "I promise," she said. "On my honor as Queen, on the memory of every world I have conquered. When you have taught me what it means to feel, I will return you to your home." Taeho felt something shift inside him. Fear, yes. Uncertainty, yes. but also something else. A strange sense of purpose. A feeling that this was what he was meant to do. He turned to look at Yuna and Hyan Su. His sister was crying openly now, tears streaming down her face. But she was also nodding. She understood. Hyan Su raised his hand in a salute. Not a military salute, but the old gesture they had invented as children. A promise between friends. Taeho smiled and returned the gesture. Then he turned back to the queen. "I will come with you," he said. The queen's expression did not change, but something in her eyes seemed to brighten. Like a fire that had been dying for thousands of years, suddenly given fuel. "Thank you," she said. And in those two words, Taeho heard something he had not expected. Genuine gratitude. She offered her hand to him. Her fingers were long and pale, like carved marble. Taeho looked at them for a moment, then reached out and took them. Her skin was cool, but not cold. Smooth, but not hard. In her grip, Taeho felt the strength of a being who had ruled the stars. But he also felt something fragile. Something uncertain. She was afraid too, he realized. Afraid that this would not work. Afraid that she would never learn what she sought. Afraid that the emptiness would last forever. They walked together toward the ship. Behind them, the world watched in silence. Yuna broke through the barrier at the last moment. She ran across the field, ignoring the shouts of the guards, and threw her arms around her brother. "Come back to me," she whispered. "Promise me you will come back." Taeho held her tightly. He breathed in the familiar scent of her hair, felt the warmth of her arms around him. He wanted to remember this moment. He wanted to carry it with him across the stars. "I promise," he said, "no matter how long it takes, no matter how far I go, I will come back." Then he let go. He stepped back. He looked at his sister one last time, memorizing her face, her eyes, her smile. "I love you," he said. "I love you too," she replied. Then Taeho turned and walked into the ship with the queen. The metal closed behind him like water, sealing him away from everything he had ever known. The ship rose into the sky. It grew smaller and smaller until it was just a dot of light against the blue. Then it was gone, swallowed by the great shadow of the mothership. And then the mothership itself began to move. Slowly at first, then faster and faster, until it was just a memory, a story, a legend. Kang Taeho, the ordinary man from Seoul, had left Earth. But he had not been taken. He had chosen. And that choice would change everything. The inside of the Vellani mothership was unlike anything Taeho had ever imagined. It was vast, larger than any city on Earth. Towers of crystal rose toward ceilings so high that they disappeared in the mist. Gardens of alien plants glowed with soft light. Rivers of silver liquid flowed through channels carved into the floor. And everywhere there were Vellani. Thousands of them. Millions, perhaps. They moved through the ship in perfect order, each one performing their tasks with machine-like precision. They did not speak unless they needed to. They did not laugh. They did not cry. They simply existed, cold and efficient and empty. Tae-Ho watched them with sadness in his heart. They had so much power, so much knowledge, so much time, and yet they had nothing that truly mattered. The queen gave Taeho his own quarters, a room larger than his entire shelter back in Seoul. It had windows that looked out into space, showing him stars and galaxies that no human had ever seen. It had everything he could need to survive and be comfortable. But Taeho did not stay in his room. From the first day, he asked to walk among the Vellani. He wanted to see them, to understand them, to know who he was trying to teach. The queen agreed, though she warned him that her people might not understand him. "They have not felt anything in 10,000 years, she said. "They may not recognize what you are trying to show them." "That is okay," Taeho replied. "I did not expect this to be easy." He began his teaching not with words, but with actions. He walked through the ship, and looked at things that the Villani ignored. He stopped to admire the beauty of the crystal towers. He listened to the sound of the silver rivers. He touched the petals of alien flowers and smiled at their strange colors. The Villani watched him with confusion. They did not understand why he wasted time on such useless activities. Looking at things did not accomplish anything. Listening to sound served no purpose. Touching flowers was inefficient, but the queen watched him differently. She followed him wherever he went, observing every movement, every expression, every reaction. She was trying to understand. One day, Taiho took her to a window that looked out at a distant nebula. It was a cloud of gas and dust, hundreds of light years across, glowing with colors that had no names in any human language. "What do you see?" he asked her. The queen studied the nebula with her analytical eyes. "A stellar nursery," she said. "The remains of ancient supernovas mixed with hydrogen and helium. In a few million years, new stars will form from this material." "That is what it is," Taiho said. "But what do you see?" The queen frowned. She did not understand the question. Taiho was patient. He had been patient with confused children. He had been patient with grieving adults. He had to be patient with an ancient queen. "When I look at it," he said, "I see beauty. I see something so large and so old that it makes me feel small. But that smallness does not make me sad. It makes me grateful. Grateful that I am alive. Grateful that I can see this. Grateful that, for just one moment, I am part of something so much bigger than myself." He looked at the queen. That feeling, that sense of wonder and gratitude, that is what I want to show you. The queen looked at the nebula again. For a long moment, she was silent. "I do not feel it," she said finally. "I try to understand your words. I try to see what you see. But there is nothing, just emptiness." Taiho nodded. He had expected this. "Feeling is like a muscle," he said. "If you do not use it for a long time, it becomes weak. It takes time to build it back up." "How much time?" Taiho smiled. "I do not know, but we have time." Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Taiho continued his teaching, finding new ways to show the queen what it meant to feel. He told her stories. He told her about his childhood in Seoul, about the games he played with Hyun-soo, about the arguments he had with Yuna. He told her about the refugees he had helped, their tragedies and their triumphs. He told her about love and loss, about hope and despair, about all the complicated emotions that made humans what they were. The queen listened to every word. She asked questions. She tried to understand. Slowly, something began to change. It started small. One day, the queen smiled at something Taiho said. It was just a small movement of her lips, barely visible. But Taiho noticed, and he knew it was real. Another day, she laughed. It was a strange sound, rusty from 10,000 years of silence. But it was a laugh, a genuine expression of joy. And then, one evening, as Taiho was telling her about the night his father died, he saw something in her eyes. Something wet. Something that caught the light and sparkled. A tear. The queen touched her face with confusion. She did not understand what was happening. "What is this?" she asked. Her voice was shaking. "What is wrong with my eyes?" Taiho smiled gently. "Nothing is wrong," he said. "You are crying. You are feeling sadness for someone else's pain. You are feeling empathy." The queen stared at the tear on her finger. She studied it like it was the most precious thing in the universe. "I feel it," she whispered. "I feel something. It is small. It is faint, but it is there." Word spread through the ship. The other Villani began to watch Taiho more closely. They had seen their queen change. They had seen her smile and laugh and cry. They wanted to understand. Taiho welcomed them all. He had infinite patience and infinite kindness. He told them stories. he showed them beauty. He taught them to look at the universe not as a machine to be understood, but as a wonder to be experienced. Not all of them learned. Some were too far gone, too empty, too broken, but many did. One by one, the Villani began to feel again. A scientist wept when he saw a star die. A soldier laughed at a silly joke. A child, one of the few young Villani in the Empire, looked up at Tejo with eyes full of wonder and asked, "Is this what happiness feels like?" "Yes," Tejo said, lifting the child into his arms. "This is happiness." 3 years passed. 3 years of teaching, of patience, of small victories and quiet moments. 3 years of transforming an empire not through war, but through kindness. And then, one day, the queen came to Tejo with a new look in her eyes. It was a look he recognized. It was a look he had seen many times before, in the faces of refugees who had finally found safety. It was hope. "I'm ready," she said. "Ready for what?" "To go back," the queen replied. "To take you home." Tejo felt his heart leap. He had not forgotten his promise to Yuna. He had not forgotten Earth. But he had not expected this moment to come so soon. "Are you sure?" he asked. "There is still so much more I could teach you." The queen shook her head. "You have taught me enough," she said. "You have taught me the most important lesson of all. You have taught me that true strength is not the power to conquer, but the courage to feel. And now I must let you go, because I finally understand what love means." She smiled. It was a real smile, warm and genuine. "It means letting go," she said, "even when it hurts." Tejo felt tears in his own eyes. After 3 years among beings who were learning to feel, he had almost forgotten how easily humans could cry. "Thank you," he said, "for listening, for trying, for changing." The queen took his hands in hers. "No," she said, "thank you. For showing us that we were not broken beyond repair. For believing in us when we had given up on ourselves." She looked out the window at the stars. "I am going to free them," she said. "All the worlds we conquered, all the species we subdued. I am going to let them go." Tejo stared at her in shock. "All of them?" "All of them," she confirmed. "An empire built on emptiness has no value. But a universe filled with beings who can feel, who can love, who can hope, that is worth more than all the power in the galaxy." She squeezed his hands. "You taught me that, Kang Tejo. You, a man who makes soup for strangers. You changed everything." Earth had changed in 3 years. It had become united in a way it never had been before. The arrival of the Villani had shown humanity that they were not alone in the universe, and that knowledge had changed everything. But some things had not changed. The sun still rose over Seoul. The streets were still full of people going about their lives. And at a small refugee shelter in the heart of the city, people still needed help. Yuna worked at the shelter now. After Tejo left, she had taken over his duties. She made soup. She helped refugees find places to stay. She listened to their stories. It was not the work she had trained for, but it was the work her brother had loved. And in doing it, she felt close to him. 3 years. She had waited 3 years with no word, no message, no sign that her brother was still alive. But she had never given up hope. Every morning, she looked at the sky and whispered the same words, "Come back to me." On a Tuesday morning in spring, her prayer was answered. The Villani ship appeared without warning. It descended from the clouds, just as it had 3 years before, casting a shadow over the city. But this time, people did not run. This time, they gathered in the streets and watched with wonder instead of fear. Yuna ran to the landing site. Her heart was pounding so hard, she thought it might burst. She pushed through the crowd, ignoring the shouts of security guards, ignoring everything except the ship that was opening before her. And then she saw him. Kan Taeho stepped out of the ship. He looked older. There were lines on his face that had not been there before. His hair had streaks of gray at the temples, but his eyes were the same, kind, gentle, full of warmth. "Brother!" Yuna screamed. She ran to him and threw her arms around him. She held him so tightly that she could feel his heartbeat against her chest. She was crying and laughing at the same time, unable to believe that this moment was real. "I promised," Taeho whispered. "I promised I would come back." Behind him, the queen emerged from the ship. She was followed by hundreds of Vellani, their silver faces no longer cold masks but living expressions of emotion. Some were smiling. Some were crying. Some were looking around at Earth with wonder, like children seeing the world for the first time. Hyeon-soo arrived moments later, still wearing his military uniform. He pushed through the crowd and stopped when he saw Taeho. For a moment, the two friends just looked at each other. Then Hyeon-soo laughed and grabbed Taeho in a fierce hug. "You crazy fool," he said. "You actually did it." "I had help," Taeho replied. The queen stepped forward. She looked at Yuna and Hyeon-soo, at the crowd that had gathered, at the planet that had produced the man who had saved her people. "People of Earth," she said. Her voice carried across the city, broadcast by the same technology that had once terrified humanity. "I came to your world 3 years ago as a conqueror. I was searching for something I had lost, and I was willing to take it by force if necessary." She paused and looked at Taeho. "But this man taught me a different way. He taught me that true power is not found in weapons or armies or conquered worlds. True power is found in the courage to feel, to love, to hope, even when it hurts. That is the strength that your species possesses. That is the gift you have given to the galaxy." She raised her hand, and a holographic display appeared in the sky. It showed a map of the galaxy, with 47 star systems highlighted in blue. "Today, I announce the dissolution of the Vellani Empire. Every world we conquered will be freed. Every species we subdued will be released. We will no longer rule through force. Instead, we will spend our lives learning what Kan Taeho taught us, how to be alive." A murmur went through the crowd. People could not believe what they were hearing. An empire that spanned the galaxy, giving up its power? It seemed impossible, but the queen was not finished. "We owe this to humanity," she continued. "Not to your governments or your armies or your leaders. To your people. To the ordinary beings who have not forgotten how to feel. You have reminded us of what we lost. And for that, we are eternally grateful." She turned to Taeho one last time. "Thank you," she said. "For everything?" Taeho smiled at her. It was the same smile he had given to dying children, to grieving widows, to everyone who had ever needed kindness. It was the smile of a man who saw the best in everyone, even an alien queen who had conquered the stars. "Remember what I taught you," he said. "Keep feeling. Keep loving. Even when it is hard. Especially when it is hard." The queen nodded. Then she did something that shocked everyone watching. She stepped forward and embraced Taeho gently. It was awkward, imperfect, the hug of someone who was still learning how physical affection worked. But it was real. "Goodbye, my teacher," she whispered. "Goodbye, my student," Taeho replied. Then the queen and her people returned to their ship. It rose into the sky, joined the mothership that waited above. And then, just as it had 3 years ago, the mothership began to move. It grew smaller and smaller until it was just a point of light among the stars. But this time, it was not a departure. It was a graduation. The days that followed were filled with celebrations. Humanity had not just survived contact with an alien species. They had changed the course of galactic history without firing a single shot. News channels called Taeho a hero. World leaders wanted to meet him. Scientists wanted to study him, but Tejo refused all of it. He went back to his shelter in Seoul. He picked up where he had left off, making soup and helping refugees and listening to stories. He was exactly the same man he had always been. One evening, as the sun was setting over the city, Yuna came to visit him. She found him sitting on the steps of the shelter, watching the sky turn orange and pink and gold. "You could be famous," she said, sitting down beside him. "You could be rich. You could be anything you want." Tejo shook his head. "I am already everything I want to be," he said. "I am a man who helps people. That is all I ever wanted." Yuna smiled and leaned her head against his shoulder. "The whole galaxy is talking about you," she said. "They are calling you the man who conquered an empire with kindness." Tejo laughed softly. "I did not conquer anything," he said. "I just showed them what they had forgotten. What all of us forget sometimes." "What is that?" Tejo looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Villani were spreading across the galaxy, teaching other species what they had learned. Somewhere out there, worlds were being freed and peoples were being reunited. Somewhere out there, the universe was becoming a little bit brighter. "That the most powerful thing in the universe is not strength," he said. "It is love. And love is not a weakness. It is not a flaw. It is what makes us human. It is what makes life worth living." He put his arm around his sister and held her close. "That is what I taught the queen," he said. "And that is what I will keep teaching for as long as I live." Years later, when Tejo was old and gray, visitors still came to his shelter from across the galaxy. Villani and humans, working side by side, helping those in need. Schools on 100 worlds taught about Earth, not as the species who fought, but as the species who felt. And when children asked what gift humanity gave to the universe, the answer was always the same: not weapons, not technology, not power, just their hearts. And that was more than enough.